Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Finland once again, and that means that we're going to have a look at yet another beer from the latest instalment of the Riku box. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to Riku Sanaho, my Finnish beer mule. It's thanks to him that you guys get to enjoy a steady stream of Finnish reviews here on Rampant Lion Reviews. But he's a lovely guy living in Oulu in the northwest of Finland, very knowledgeable about his beer, and he seems to have his own beer network operating within Finland. So he always buys me a few extra things, I send him the cash, and then he mails the beer over to me here in Sweden. It's a great system, and it's really cool to be able to try some Finnish beers that would otherwise be very difficult to get. So as always, a massive kiitos and kiitos to Riku for making these reviews possible, and I hope that you guys enjoy them as well. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is actually the last beer from the latest instalment of the Riku box, so we need to organise another one a little bit later on. But the one we're going to have a look at today is from a brewery that has featured on the channel a number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're very well rounded and do lots of different stuff and always do it pretty well. But the beer is a style that I very much enjoy, one that I haven't tried from this brewery yet, and yeah, it is supposed to be very nice according to Riku, and he's never steered me wrong before, I have to say. So yeah, very much looking forward to trying this one. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Espoo, which is very close to the Finnish capital, Helsinki, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from Salama Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Drowning Doppelganger. It comes in at 13% ABV, and it is a barrel-aged barley wine. So yeah, a little bit of a monster, this one. I thought we would stagger out the Salama reviews over the course of reviewing the beers from the latest Riku box, and this is just the one that I thought would age the best. We ended up with 5 Salama beers this time, which is never a bad thing, but obviously you want to review different things as time goes on. But like I said, a 13% barley wine, this one, so it's an absolute monster. This one has been aged in Templeton rye whiskey barrels from the US. I think they're from Iowa, if I remember correctly. But yeah, lovely artwork on this one, as you always get from Salama Brewing, and a style that I very much enjoy. And Riku tells me that this one is pretty awesome too. So I think this is quite a nice place to sign off from Riku box number 3, if I'm not mistaken of the number. But yeah, let's crack on with this one and see how we go. Always nice to try new things from Salama Brewing. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Salama Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Finnish playlist along with many other things. And yeah, we will be adding to that list at some point in the future, but you can check out the playlist of beers from the other countries as well. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you once again about Salama Brewing. So, as I mentioned to you already, Salama Brewing are based in Espoo, which is very close to Helsinki, the Finnish capital in the south of the country, and this company was founded back in 2019 by a group of friends. So, the men behind the company are Christian Holmlund, Jaakko Ailio, Johannes Järvinen, and Ville Sarikoski. So Christian is the CEO, and he has a background in running small medium enterprises, SMEs, whereas Jaakko is the brewer and Johannes takes care of the bureaucracy side of things, and Ville acts as the art director of the company, which is why these guys have such a distinctive style. But the brewery is very close to the IKEA and the Jorvi Hospital out to the north of Espoo, and their brewing equipment that they have came from China, and they apparently have a theoretical brewing capacity of 130,000 litres of beer per year, but they brewed around 50,000 litres over the course of the first year, and they've just gradually expanded that since. They opened up a little sort of terrace at the brewery where you can buy some cans or bottles and sit out there and drink it. So it's not a tap room, but it's a kind of tap room of sorts, if you like. And these days they've also got a tap room in the city centre which you can go and visit. If you want to check out my out and about video, you will see both venues, if you like. We did do one when I was in Finland for Salama Brewing. But initially these guys wanted to focus on the kind of lighter styles of beer, such as pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, and do a few sours and things like this. But in more recent times, they have been experimenting with the bigger, heavier styles of beer. The big imperial stouts, the barley wines and stuff like this. They do have quite an extensive barrel programme these days. But apparently they do plan to export around 70% of their beer. And they've already started with that. These guys are one of the first Finnish breweries that you're going to come across outside of Finland, along with Coolhead. And as of June 2023, when we're filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 205 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd, and that will no doubt increase as time goes on. But the name Salama, of course, translates into English as lightning, so this brewery's name is literally the Lightning Brewing Company, which I think is quite cool. But that is everything I can really tell you about Salama Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So before we open up the can, you can have a little look at the artwork on this one, which I have to say is really nice. We will need to see about keeping this can. This is probably my favourite one that I've seen from Salama Brewing so far. I don't know if this is meant to be She-Hulk or Lady Hulk or whatever her name was in this one, I have to say. So yeah, that's kind of quite interesting, but you can see the Lightning Salama Brewing Company symbol on the back there, plain silver top on the can. Incidentally, this one is a 440 milliliter can, and yeah, I actually can't remember if this is one that Riku got for me, or whether this is one that we picked up when I was actually at Salama Brewing Company with Riku, Mika and my dad, because they gave me a couple of beers for free to take away, and I've got a feeling this could have been one of those, so I honestly couldn't tell you, but it will be about a year old now, which is what you want with a barley wine. You want them to be slightly older and just to mellow out, so I think we should be drinking this one just at a very good time. But like I said earlier, the Drowning Doppelganger, a 13% Templeton rye whiskey barrel aged barley wine. This should be a little bit of a monster. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I've been looking forward to this beer for quite some time. So yeah, this does look very, very nice. I haven't had too many rye whiskey things actually on the channel. I don't think I've even drank too many rye whiskies, come to think of it, because that is definitely more of an American bourbon thing than it is in Scotland. But yeah, anyway. So before the head on this beer disappears, we've poured maybe about 350 millilitres of the can. So about, yeah, maybe just about 3/4, something like that. But you can see that when we poured this one, it poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of light fawn beige coloured head. That has faded away to be a very thin foamy layer, and then round the edge of the glass there you've got a very nice kind of foamy ring, which has got kind of medium sized bubbles in it. And of course, when this is a 13% barley wine, you wouldn't expect it to hold its head for too long anyway. So just a few wispy little bits sitting on the surface there. But in terms of the colour of this beer, it looks absolutely lovely. So for me, I would say this beer has a lovely, very dark, sort of chestnutty colour to it. I'm guessing from the colour of this one that it's probably had a little bit of a longer wort boil. So I mean, remember, the colour of your beer is determined by a few factors. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put into the beer, will affect that as well. But yeah, when it comes to kind of brown beers like barley wines and doppelbocks and Scotch ales and stuff, the barrel can affect the colour of the beer. I'd be very curious to know how much of the colour in this one is due to the rye whiskey barrel, because rye whiskey is always a little bit darker than you know, Scotch whiskey or regular American bourbon, from what I remember. But yeah, I would think just from the colour of this one, this one's probably had a little bit of a longer wort boil. We'll be able to tell when we have a little look at the flavour and the aroma, of course. But yeah, most of the colour in this one I would think will be coming from the types of malts and the length of the wort boil. But not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the bottom of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the surface, but other than that, it does look pretty nice, I have to say. So let's have a wee closer look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this beer. Oh yeah, this thing smells like an absolute monster. It's absolutely beautiful, I have to say. It gives you everything you would want from the style. Now, as I've always said, for me there are two kinds of barley wines. There's the English barley wine and the American barley wine. The English one is a little bit more kind of toasty and grainy, and the fruity character comes across as, you know, a little bit more of a kind of dried fruit, like datey, sultana kind of things. Whereas the American barley wine's a lot more rounded and a lot more oily and kind of sweet and things like this, with more red fruity character. And this one's kind of interesting because it's showing you the character of both of these sides of the coin, if you like. But it's lovely. It really smells very, very nice, this one. You've got a bit of everything that you want from this style in here. Some nice fruitiness, a good little bit of malty backbone and sweetness in there. When it's barrel aged, you've got a little bit of the wood coming out of this one, and you do still have a little bit of hoppy character coming out of the beer as well. Because remember, a barley wine is essentially the big brother to a double IPA. From what I understand, the triple IPAs and quadruple IPAs that we see these days basically, pardon me, take the hop to malt ratio of the double IPA and then just put more malt in and give it more alcohol, and they do the same with the quadruple IPAs as well. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind with these with barley wines as well. But this smells lovely. Let's try and break this down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you absolutely have a little bit of that lovely smooth American oak just forming the backbone of this one. Comes out very, very nicely. So lovely smooth American oak in there. On top of that, you can smell the kind of rye whiskey sugars in this one. So yeah, the smooth American oak in there. As I've always said, American oak for me is a little bit smoother than and almost sweeter in its aroma than the European oak. So you get a little bit of kind of vanilla coming out of this one, but you can also smell the rye whiskey, kind of brown sugars in this one. And as I've always said, American whiskey, be it rye or bourbon, is always a little bit sweeter in terms of its flavour and aroma than Scotch whiskey is. And of course, I'm being Scottish myself, I'm a lot more familiar with Scotch whiskey, I have to say. But yeah, the aroma that you get from the whiskey side of things in this one the aroma that you get from the whiskey side of things in this one is really quite nice, actually. And you can smell more and more of that as your nose adjusts to the beer. But above that, you start to get some lovely kind of bready characteristics out of this one. So yeah, the bready characteristic that you have in the beer, you've got that lovely kind of rye bready bread crust in this one, and then above that you do get a little bit of a kind of quite highly caramelised rye bread coming out of the aroma there, which is nice. But then above that you've got this more kind of wholemeal brown bready character, and it's almost like it's been soaked in brandy or something like that. It's like a fruit roll kind of character that you get out of this one, which is really nice. So yeah, you've got the rye bread crust, the straight up kind of rye bread, and then that kind of brandy soaked fruit loaf type thing coming out of this one. Within that you've got a little touch of nutty character as well. There's a little bit of a nutty kind of dryness in there, and then you get all of the brown sugary characters coming out of this beer. So for me, the brown sugary character in here, you can smell, it has got a little bit of a kind of leathery character to it, which would indicate a slightly longer wort boil, but you can kind of tell that the leatheriness isn't too pungent. So either it hasn't had too long of a wort boil, or the barrel side of this beer is actually quite powerful. We'll be able to tell a bit more when we taste the thing. But yeah, you can smell a little bit of that leathery brown sugar, which would indicate a longer wort boil. I think at minimum usually you do a 6-hour wort boil when it comes to barley wines, otherwise they just don't taste that great at all. But yeah, above that you have you start to get a more kind of, there's a little touch of a toasty brown sugar in there. Then you get a lot of that kind of highly caramelised treacle molasses sort of thing, and a little bit of sweet caramel. There's little elements of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit coming out of the aroma of this beer as well, which is, needless to say, very, very nice. So yeah, aroma-wise, the way this one goes together, I think, is really, really very nice. So gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like it. So on the malty, yeasty and barrel side of things, I think that's everything we really need to say. In terms of the hoppy nature of the beer, I would say that this one has a nice little bit of... it does have a little bit of its hop character remaining. Of course, this is one of these beers that you could keep for a good number of years if you wanted to. I'm not sure how it goes actually aging beers like this that are in cans. I don't know if the can holds up a little bit more than the bottle does, but anyway, you could theoretically age a 13% barrel-aged barley wine for quite a wee while. But as you age the beer, essentially the hoppy character is going to drop out, but you still get a little bit of a hoppy remnant in this one, I have to say. So for me, you've got a lovely little bit of... there's a little touch of earthiness in this one, which is great. You've got a nice little bit of kind of floral... you do have a nice little bit of a herbal character in there as well. So yeah, a little bit of earthiness, a little bit of herbal character. And then, of course, you get a nice little bit of floral aromaticity coming out of this beer as well. And you also get just a wee touch of grassiness. But these green components, as I say, take a bit of a backseat to everything else that's going on in this one. The hoppy character in this beer is quite minimal, to be honest with you, on the green component side of things. But yeah, on the fruity side of the beer, for me, you've got a lovely mix of fruits in here. This is the fruity character in this one is a little bit more akin to it really is a little bit more akin to an English barley wine. So there's a lot of kind of datey character in there, like these dry kind of datey notes. Lots of sultana as well, dry white green grapes. Lots of pear, big oily kind of dry pear. And you do get just a little hint of a kind of there is a little bit of like a fig or black curranty note to this one. You're not getting the sharp raisins or juicy plums and stuff like this. It is more like a kind of datey, sultana, oily pear type aroma that's coming out of this one. So yeah, the way this beer goes together is really, really quite interesting, I have to say. Aroma wise, it's absolutely beautiful, and you guys watching the channel for any length of time will know I love these kind of big brown sugary beers. But yeah, let's get the rest of this guy out into the glass, because this is one of my summer day off beers. I'm going to sit and sip this for the next kind of hour or two and enjoy it. But yeah, this is our last one from the latest instalment of the Riku box in 2023. So yeah, the Drowning Doppelganger, barrel-aged barley wine at 13% ABV, aged in Templeton rye whiskey barrels from, I believe, Iowa over in the US. Let's get stuck into this one then. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. That is very, very nice. Going to say straight away, a big thumbs up to Salama for this one. Yeah, this is really nice. First impression of this beer, as I say, as you would expect from a barley wine, big, big oily sweetness in there. It has actually got a little bit of a kind of roasty, toasty dryness to it when you first take it in as well, and that's really interesting. But yeah, once your mouth adjusts to this one, you get all of these, you get everything else coming out of this. This is one of these beers where the aftertaste is giving you a lot of the complexity. But it's a little bit of a kind of darker barley wine, but I guess the kind of rye barrel aging is going to give you a bit more of the kind of graininess and the dryness and stuff like this too. But this is really very nice. I'd go as far as saying that this is potentially the best beer that I've had from Salama Brewing yet. I do need to try more of their IPAs and stuff like that and try them a little bit kind of fresher. But yeah, that's just kind of how it goes. It's a bit difficult to get a hold of some of the IPAs at some points. So Yeah, this is lovely. Everything you'd want from the style. Big oily fruitiness. It's one of the more drier and toasty examples of the barley wine that I've come across in recent times. Anyway, but that gives you a nice, a little bit of my first impression of this beer. Yeah, let's kind of break this one down and describe it as we always do. We'll start in the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer is, of course, that lovely, smooth American oaky character there, and you can feel that as you move further forward in that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of you do get a little bit more of a kind of vanilla and kind of nutty character out of this one. So yeah. So yeah, you can feel the smooth American oak in the backbone there, then further forward on that middle 30 palate, there's a little bit of a kind of nutty and there's a little bit of that kind of nutty and vanilla type character coming out of the wood. But above that, you can certainly get the rye whiskey spirit in this one, and that's actually quite dry and quite grainy and quite toasty, I would hasten to add. So yeah, the rye kind of grainy whiskey character out of this one is really quite nice actually. As I say, I'm not overly familiar with rye whiskey. It's something that I do need to try a little bit more of going forward. But yeah, I just need to keep an eye on that and see what we can find. But yeah, above the kind of the rye whiskey sugars, you've got a little bit of that kind of toast, slightly toasty but quite dry rye bread crust coming out of this one, and you can feel that there. Some of the dryness from that lingers into the aftertaste. Above that though, you've got a kind of thicker rye bready layer in there, which has a more kind of caramelized layer actually, which I do like. So yeah, that nice kind of caramelized rye bready layer is in there, and then above that you actually get the kind of cakey fruit wholemeal, fruit loaded bread kind of character that I was talking about in this one. So above that you have this nice, like I say, above the kind of more caramelized rye bready layer, you have that kind of more airy and slightly fluffy fruit roll type layer in there. And further forward within that kind of brandy soaked wholemeal fruit roll bread type layer, you have a little bit of nutty character coming out of this one. You get more and more of the nuttiness the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, the way the beer pieces together in that regard is really quite nice. The breadiness that you get out of this, that kind of lingers into the aftertaste. It really is just like a brandy soaked kind of brown sugary cake, actually, that layer there, and you get more and more sweetness and more of the nutty dryness coming out of this one the further into it that you go. But yeah, above the kind of the brown bready layer, then you start to get the brown sugars in this one. So you can feel there is a good little bit of a kind of leathery brown sugary layer there, which would indicate a slightly longer wort boil. But just going by the way this one is, it's not madly leathery actually. It's got a little bit of a more toasty character to it as well. So that is quite nice. So yeah, that really is quite nice how that pieces together. But yeah, the kind of dry, as I say, the kind of dry, toasty character there. So you've got that leathery layer of brown sugar underneath. Then above that you get a more kind of toasty, almost slightly well fired brown sugar. And then you've got a circle in the middle of your palate there, which is the more you've got it's like a very oily but very sweet caramel, and it almost has a little bit of a kind of caramel wafery type quality to it, but in the absolute dead centre, in the epicenter of your palate in this beer, you've got that more you've got that kind of treacle molasses type note coming out of it, which is great. So, yeah, that treacle molasses note in the dead centre of your palate there is really very nice. And then, as I say, you move out from that, you've got sweeter caramel, and it does have a little touch of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy note to it the further into the aftertaste that you go. But then underneath that, you've got a nice little bit of a more kind of toasty brown sugar, and then the leathery layer, and you've got wee bits of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit just sitting on top of that. But as I said, the majority of the complexity in this beer sits in that middle third of your palate, and this beer, like I said, does go together very, very nicely from that perspective. So, yeah, I think that covers the middle third of your palate. Let's go on to the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a kind of nice bready build-up in this one. I think that goes together very, very well. So yeah, nice kind of bready build-up in there. It's kind of like a mix of rye bread and wholemeal brown bread, but then the base of that, the base of that back third of your palate is really very nice too. So you often get the same, like similar flavours in the back third of your palate than you do as you do in the middle third of your palate, but they just come out in different intensities. So yeah, the back of that, on the back third of your palate, you've got that nice kind of dry woodiness again. As I've always said, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back on the palate, whereas sweeter flavours come out further forward. So yeah, you can feel the woodiness is a little bit drier. Above that, you have the more, above that, you do have a little bit more of a kind of roasty, toasty kind of note out there. So you get the bourbon, you get the rye whiskey. I always want to say bourbon. You always get that. You get that rye whiskey spirit in there, which is a bit drier, a bit more green, and a bit more toasty. Then you get the bread crust, which again feels a little bit more kind of toasty and dry. You've got the rye bready layer, which feels a little bit lighter and more airy, but still drier. Then you've got the fluffier layer of that kind of cakey note coming out of the beer. So yeah, that goes together really interestingly. So yeah, the as I say, on top of that, you have the with the kind of brandy soaked cakey layer. You can feel the kind of brandy notes are a little bit drier, but it does still have a good little bit of sweetness to it. But you can also feel above that layer some of the kind of leathery brown sugars from the middle third of your palate are just kind of creeping over the top and capping off that back third of your palate. But above everything else, you've got some of the yeasty characters in there. So you do have this quite dense kind of like rye pumpernickel type bready character from the yeast above that. But it's kind of wrapped in a bit of honeycomb, and it's almost got a little tiny touch of like a kind of peppery, spicy note to it on the back third of the palate. But these are just the yeasty notes sitting above everything else on that back third of the palate. But definitely we can say the back third of the palate is taller. The flavour there is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, good stuff. So on the hoppy side of things, then we'll go to the green component of the beer now. So the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, but not too much. As you move further forward, pardon me, as you move further forward, you get a little bit of herbal character, but you can feel as you move toward the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got more and more kind of floral aromaticity coming out of this one. And the floral aromaticity does kind of linger there, and it gives you a wee bit of spiciness toward the kind of front corners of the palate. But round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is definitely lighter and more sort of grassy, actually. So yeah, I do like how this one goes together for sure. So, yeah, on top of that, I don't think we really need to say anything more about the green component of this one, but obviously, as we said earlier, the longer you keep this beer, the more the green side of the hops are going to drop out of this one. But let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of this beer. So, that border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a nice little bit of bready build-up in this one. So yeah, you've got a nice little bit of kind of bready build-up in there, which is good. On top of that, yeah, so a nice little bit of kind of, the bready build-up that you get in there, it's a kind of rye bready type character, which is good. And then the base of that, front third of your palate, you've got the woody character in there, which still feels quite dry actually, which is interesting. You've got the rye whiskey sweetness sitting on top of that, and then you've got the kind of rye bready character and a little bit more of the kind of sweeter cakey type note as well. But then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at those. So for the fruity side of things, it is kind of how I described it in the aroma actually. It kind of goes together really nicely. At the back of that front third of your palate, you've got some really nice kind of oily, datey type characters out of this one. So yeah, that nice big kind of oily, datey note out of this one. Underneath that, you've got a little bit of a, you do have a nice little bit of, how would we say, yeah, so you've got a little bit of an oily kind of datey thing with this one. Underneath that you get a little bit of a kind of sultana, white green grapey type note, which is quite cool. Then as you move further forward, you get more of a, you can feel that you gradually get more of a kind of like oily, peary character as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate. And as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, you do start to get a little bit of a more kind of red, fruity note out of this one. So there's a wee bit of oily fig in there. So yeah, nice little bit of oily fig, a little bit of a black currant, and maybe a wee tiny hint of like a blackberry on the very front tip of your tongue, the further into the aftertaste that you go with the beer. But yeah, overall, the way this beer goes together from that perspective is very, very nice. The fruity character is very much like an English barley wine. I think that's a fair description to make of this beer, or a fair statement to make. But yeah, I really like this one. I think they've done this very, very well. Definitely one of the drier barley wines that I've come across, actually, but I thought this was very, very nice, and potentially the best beer I've had from Salama Brewing so far. And one of my favourite barley wines as well. My favourite one was, what was it called? It was from Dead End Brew Machine in Glasgow, back home in Scotland. Was it called Boris the Crusher, if I remember correctly. Beautiful, beautiful barley wine. This one kind of runs it very, very close, but definitely a more kind of dry and slightly toasty example of the style for sure. But let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel when we're getting onto these kind of notes. So, mouthfeel wise, this beer for me, it's kind of at the bottom end of, full-bodied, pushing mid-range full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got this lovely silky kind of oily mouthfeel to it overall, but you have got quite a bit of dryness and toastiness in this one, in the malty side of things, which really is interesting. So like we said earlier, you've got a nice little bit of dryness and toastiness from the barrel. You've got a lovely little bit of dryness and toastiness in the malty side of things too, but quite a little bit of sweetness and big kind of sweet but still quite dry brown sugars. So overall, the malty side of this beer for me really is quite, it's a mix of dry and sweet. On the hoppy side of things, you have got a little bit of bitterness to this beer, but obviously over time that is going to drop out more and more. But I still think you're going to get maybe about 50-ish IBUs out of this one at this particular point in time. We're reviewing this beer June 2023, when it is a year old, roughly. Or it was canned about a year ago, I would think. But then, yeah, you've got the lovely fruity characters in this one, which are, again, quite dry, and the fruity notes in this beer are a lot more reminiscent of an English barley wine than they are an American barley wine. But still, just, yeah, beautiful, beautiful beer, this one. Potentially my favourite beer that I've had from Salama Brewing Company so far, and I think this is a really nice way to kind of round off this round of finish reviews. So I need to talk to Riku and see what we can do about arranging something else going forward. But a few other things will come before I do that, actually. But I talk to Riku very regularly about beer. He always sends me things to have a look at and stuff like this. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Drowning Doppelganger Templeton Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged Barley Wine at 13% ABV from Salama Lightning Brewing Company in Espoo in Finland. Lovely beer, this one, and potentially my favourite that I've had from this brewery, and one of my favourite barley wines as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Salama Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until the next time, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out Salama's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly.